Okay, well, good evening everyone. My name's Mark Fernandez. So, as I've mentioned a few times before, I'm an old student of Tara Institute. So it's I'm just going to continue on from the previous week's sort of talks or teachings on and go over some of the topics as well, just so we get a bit more familiarity with them, but also just to test our own understanding of them, because that's one of the important things about being or studying Buddhist philosophy or Introduction to Buddhism, is that you are actually the arbiter of whether something makes sense or not, or something is true or not. It's not the person at the front speaking, because I could say anything and it could be complete rubbish. So you have to use your discriminating wisdom to determine the truth or the veracity of what's being said, whether it resonates with you. So that's quite important. So is anyone here tonight new to Tara Institute or new to Monday nights? Oh yeah, welcome. Yeah, and the rest of you, I recognise most of you. So you're old hands, because some of you have been coming for quite a long time, haven't you? Particularly the Monday nights, I think. So that's really good. Anyway, so I'll continue on. So welcome to everyone. So the first thing is Introduction to Buddhism. So the first thing we do is we establish a very good motivation or intention before we engage in any activity. And that acts as an impetus for whatever activity we engage in, whether that's listening or meditating, studying, meeting someone, reading, going out, whatever activity, playing sport. If you have a good motivation before you do it, then it'll give it added impetus. So does that make sense to everyone? So, because we can do things, particularly with the modern devices, we can be, oh yeah, and then you're not really engaged. Or we're not really engaged because one part of the mind's doing this while the other one's, say, talking. So it's quite important to, if you establish good motivation, you'll be able to be 100% focused on that. So in past weeks we've covered the law of cause and effect, or karma, so from a Buddhist perspective. So it's important to understand the law of cause and effect, or karma, which is basically that a positive action will lead to a positive result, and likewise a negative action will lead to a negative result. Now this isn't a phenomenon that's 100% observable in the moment, because we could do, for example, an act of generosity, very good motivation, giving to someone, and then a few moments later someone could steal our car. So it doesn't quite follow that the action will lead to an immediate result. However, we do say that the result occurs at some stage, that positive action will bear fruit or will lead to a positive result in the future. So in general, with the way the law of karma is explained is, you do something really, good now, properly, good action, the result might be in a future lifetime. But it doesn't need to be necessarily that far into the distance, because that's quite it's quite a demoralising thing. I can try my hardest but if it has no impact on our lives as we have them now, then you're having to sort of project into the future and go, in my future life I'll bear the fruit of these good actions. So it doesn't necessarily work that it's always a future result that's way into the future. So His Holiness says all beings want happiness and don't want suffering. So that's a perfectly valid aspiration to have. In fact, I think it's tied to human rights myself, that all human beings deserve happiness and should have happiness. His Holiness has just extended that to all beings. So he's talking about all beings, so all human beings and all other beings want happiness and don't want suffering. So they deserve happiness and they don't deserve to suffer. So if we're to perform these positive actions, and I've created a cause, where is that stored? Where is that imprint or that energy stored? If it's marked, it's done the act of generosity. Where is it actually stored? Is it on my body, in my arm, or my ear? Would anyone like to? Is it stored on you? If I perform the good action, are you going to get the result? You hope so. Yeah. I mean that's true. Yes. That's right. The seed is sown on your mental continuum. So that's important to realise as well. So that there is a spot there somewhere that seed is stored. So we call it the mental continuum because it's continuous. There's no actual break. So we might think at death there's a break, but from a Buddhist perspective, it's merely a transition point from this existence to whatever's the next one. So those imprints will either ripen or go with you. So if it's on your mental continuum and not on your leg or your arm, then that's generating a good motivation and doing a good action for even this hour, then that's really good because it's stored there. And if that good action ripens, it doesn't necessarily ripen to the same extent. So you can go, oh well, Mark gave $10 to someone who was hungry, needed, so great, it might turn into $1 million. So that's one result. It could be just an expanded result. The other result could be that in my mind I become more accustomed to being generous. So same thing with you. So you're creating a good habit, a virtuous habit. So that's quite good too, because it becomes then, it's not a struggle so much to be generous, for example, but you're habituating yourself to that type of virtuous action. So that's quite important. Because there are people, you hear about them, that they're consumed by miserliness, so that they don't want to open their wallet or the purse or whatever. They don't want to let go of anything. So it's sort of like really, really tough for them. So they're grasping onto the wealth they have rather than, if someone needs it, being generous. So it's quite difficult. That's a mental thing. So they've got the wealth. They've got this probably more wealth than perhaps you and I. But their mind is such that they go, no, I'm not giving anything away. No one deserves it. I'm going to hold it. So that's sort of if you like, you've got the wealth, so you've got the good fortune to be wealthy, but you're not willing to actually use it for a good ends, perhaps. And then similarly, with that, I've spoken about, I'll be happy when I get this much money. So say $1 million. We'll say $1 million. So when we get to $1 million, what happens? I want 2. That's right. I want 2. So that's the natural thing of, I just need a bit more, double it. So, or I want it, I must have that new car. And once you get it, it smells fabulous, you're really good, it looks good, and then even that wears off. That new car feeling they talk about, even that Whereas if it sort of was enticing and you think, oh, that's really good, I've got that, but then that doesn't do it either. So it's not the object so much that's determining our satisfaction or happiness. So it's really our mental state. So it actually means, from a Buddhist perspective, we don't have to hand over all our wealth. Like, we don't have to be a pauper ourselves and just give everything away. We still need resources ourselves. We still need to have aspiration, ambition, but we can have all those other good qualities as well. We can have generosity, develop wisdom, and so on. So they're quite important things to understand. So in Buddhism, they say that the main arbiter of whether one is happy or not, happy or sad or suffering, is the mind. So, and when we're talking about that mind, my understanding is that it's we have this mind that's continually sort of grabbing at one thought and then the next thought and then the next thought in the search for happiness. So it's sort of like, sometimes it's sort of unconscious almost, just, oh yeah, and then, oh yeah, and then, then take a call, or then you're watching something else, sort of. So it's continually moving from one thing to the other in search of some satisfaction or happiness. And that's one of the things we need to counter. So we do that. One of the techniques we use to counter that is to develop some sort of peace within the mind, because all those sort of gesticulations I just did demonstrate a sort of a more agitated mind that's just running from here, there, and everywhere to try and find happiness. So we're trying to develop a more peaceful state of mind that will lead to happiness. So one of the techniques we use is the technique of meditation. So we'll cover a little bit of meditation in a minute, but if we couple meditation with our understanding of the law of cause and effect, we can begin to understand what actions to cultivate and which ones we should avoid. If we do that, then we're developing compassion for ourselves. So that's another Buddhist principle. You need to have some compassion or love and respect for yourself. You can't be, well, I'm worthless, there's not much point, so that you need to have some feeling that you are worthwhile. So that's quite important as well. And in this respect, compassion is defined as the wish to be free from suffering. So we need to have that for ourselves first up. So and we also need to have love for ourselves, or we can develop it. So would anyone like to define what that love is in this context? Ingrid? So who's wishing to be happy in this? Yep. That's right. So love in this instance is the wish for myself or ourselves to be happy, and also to create the causes for that. So if we have the germ of those ideas, so effectively we're using the meditation as a form of mental training. We understand the law of cause and effect to define which actions we should cultivate and which ones we should avoid. And then we also have some compassion for ourselves, and also that seed of love for ourselves. We could stop there. So we could say that's it. I've got a good, I can, from this base, I can develop good qualities, have love and compassion for myself, know which actions to cultivate and which to avoid. So in this tradition, we go a step further. So we sort of go, well, that's very good if we can do that, but then we extend that feeling or motivation to others as well. So we wish for other beings to be happy and to be free from suffering as well. So that's if you like, something that sets this tradition apart from perhaps other Buddhist traditions, where the emphasis is more on our own compassion and love for ourselves, but we're talking about sort of extending it to others. So, for some people, extending that love and compassion for others is easy, very easy. Big, warm-hearted people, they can draw everyone in, and everyone feels good around them. They can make everyone feel at home, welcome, happy. For other people, it's more of a struggle to actually do that. So one of the obstacles to that, to developing this sort of feeling for others, good warm feeling for others, is we tend to view others in terms of a prism of they're my friend, they're my enemy, or they're a stranger, and I don't give two hoots about them. So there's generally those three, if you like, types of paradigms working for every being we encounter. We have that. Oh, friendly, yeah, friend. Bit hostile is an enemy, and that one I don't really have any interaction with, so I don't care. So stranger. So so when we have the friend, what we tend to do is we tend to overestimate their very good qualities, like really overestimate. So what happens when we overestimate someone's qualities? Who gets disappointed if we overestimate how good someone is? Sorry, what's that? Yeah, we do in the end. I mean, and also perhaps the other person, because they can't live up to, putting them on that giant pedestal. So it's quite. So that it's sort of you think, oh, I'm loving everyone because I'm, but then if we have this sort of overlay of just attachment, if we overestimate, it doesn't quite work out for us all the time. So what about the enemy, or we perceived enemy? What feeling would you say we would have towards them? Anger or hatred. So it's really that. It probably comes from that. So it's really a strong ill will. So do you want to be around someone who you perceive as an enemy? You generally don't. You want to move, a million miles away from them. So there's that. And the third one is it's sort of effectively this stranger. So we're ignorant of them, totally. Like we don't have any feeling towards them because we don't perhaps interact with them or don't care. So let's do a little bit of meditation. So just for the, we'll go over it again. So effectively the most important thing is to have your back straight, and you can be on a chair or on a cushion. And then you're, in our tradition, the left hand's on the bottom and the right hand's on top, and your thumbs are touching and your fingers are pointing back towards your navel. So that's good. And then your eyes are barely open, not quite fully shut and not quite fully open. They're sort of just letting the impression of light in. And your mouth's closed, and so we're going to be breathing through the nostrils. So we'll just do this for a few minutes, or a few moments. So as we're breathing in, we can be feeling or visualising that enlightened energy is coming into us. And as we're breathing out, that all our worries and stresses and concerns are leaving us. And now just bring your attention just to the sensation of the breath as it goes in and out through your nostrils. So visualize in front of you someone who you would regard as a friend, and then next to them someone who you would regard as an enemy. And then next to them someone who you would consider as a stranger. So in meditation we can allow those feelings to develop for these three specific beings, the friend, the enemy and the stranger. Then we can swap them around. So the friend for some reason becomes our enemy. The enemy becomes the stranger, and then the stranger becomes our friend. So finally we'll swap them again. So your original friend becomes a stranger, your original enemy becomes a friend, and the original stranger becomes your enemy. So you can bring your attention back to the room and then open your eyes when you're ready. So that type of meditation is called an analytical meditation. So it's quite safe because we're in control of it, so we can stop it, we can go dive deeper. So it's quite a good technique, and it complements when we're doing the breathing meditation, which is more a meditation to develop some sort of focus or concentration. So we can do one then do the other, and both types of meditation have a benefit for you. So they both, in fact, they benefit each other. So as your concentration improves, your analytical process will get stronger as well, and vice versa. So that scenario about, they were my best friend or my friend, and then they've become a stranger or an enemy, is that realistic or true? Does it happen, or does it, or does the friend that we've had since childhood stay our best friend? How does it work? So yes, they cycle around in different ways. So if I look at my own friends, I don't know any friends that I had who were my best friends in childhood, because they've all not so much an enemies. One did become an enemy. We had a falling out when we were both 15, and he was gone. He left, but mostly they've gone out. They've gone on to other things. So that, to me, that's an example of, if I'd held so strongly to just the idea of those friendships rock solid, then in reality it wasn't like that. And is it possible that someone you don't know, could become your best friend? Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so that's the surprise of life, isn't it? I had no knowledge of them, and then suddenly they're in my life, and they're my friend and my best friend, closest companion. So that's good. What about an enemy? Could they become your friend? So you have a butting heads, but then it becomes, okay, we can actually get on well. Does that happen too? Yeah, it does. So yeah, great. So that's good. So from the Buddhist context, we'd say that all the beings we've encountered have probably been through a friend, enemy, stranger interaction with us in past lives, this life, maybe in future life. That these things are happening all the time. There's a dynamic. It's not static and fixed and permanent. So if we have that, if you like, view that, I've got a friend and there's someone I don't know at all, and there's another one who I don't like much. If we hold those things as just fixed, solid, it will be more difficult to develop love and compassion for others. if we can counter that through doing that sort of meditation, what develops out of that is what we call equanimity. So equanimity is an equal feeling towards those three beings, for example, in your meditation. So what would you characterise that equal feeling to be like? What was that? Indifference. Yes, I've got an equal I've got indifference to all three of them, so I couldn't give two hoots about any of them. That's what you could have. That there, or disdain. I have an equal disdain for all three of them. So, but that's not what we're talking about here. So it's an equal warm feeling towards all three. So that's what we should be developing. So, because if we have indifference, then it's sort of saying I don't care about them. And if we have disdain, there's an element of hatred there. And I've heard someone saying that. I treat all my employees equally. I like none of them. So to me that's a disdain for them. They're just going, well, I'm treating them all the same, but so we're not talking about those. We're talking about this sort of a positive, a warmth, affection, a positive emotion or cultivation of a positive feeling towards them. So if you develop that equanimity, one of the things that can come as a result of that is that you begin to see all people as your friend, regardless of how they interact with you. So your first response or your first interaction with them from your side is, oh, that's a friend. So it's a lot more powerful dynamic than she's a friend and he's not, and that one I don't care. So that one's a little bit, as we've sort of discussed, that one can move around a bit. But if your approach to everyone is positive from your side, does it mean that everyone will treat you like a long-lost friend? No. It doesn't quite work that way. But from your side, what you're giving out is warmth and affection in safety. There's no loss in cultivating that. In fact, the only thing it will bring you is happiness. Yeah, sure. Yes. So the explanation I've given for cause and effect and rebirth is that we're talking about it from now. Creating a ball of energy, positive energy, and it going into the future and it impacting on this life and future lives. But you could, yes, that's a very good point. You could flip it back, because if you've got future lives, then by extension you could say we had past lives. And that's true, isn't it? There are people we come in contact with that you never met them, but then you click like that, and there's an immediate affinity or rapport with them. And I'm not saying it's unexplainable by in terms of our just one life, but you could say you've had a connection with that person from previous lives. So yeah. In fact, that's one of the things I say when you look back at why can't I examine past lives? And one of the things they say for us is that we had so much trauma at the birth and at the previous death, and they're life-triggering events that occurred previously that sort of, they're suppressed almost, the memories of them. So I'm not saying it's impossible to go back and examine your past lives, but it does take a lot of work. So it needs a lot of clarity of mind. So you see some young kids, they can remember. They can sort of remember, almost being in the mum's tummy, like they can. Whereas when we get older, we forget pretty quickly what actually happened, even at that point. So anyway, that's true. So for all of us here in the room, we could say we've had a connection before, and that's one of the things that's drawn us here, is that connection, and perhaps that will draw us together in the future. So that's good. That's very good, isn't it? So, because you're amongst friends, so you haven't got people next to you who with rifles who are looking for the next opportunity to kill. It's sort of like-minded people trying to sort of cultivate good qualities. So that's quite good. So we can develop that connection from past lives, and we can cultivate it in this life for the deepening of our relationships in this life, and that could manifest in the next lifetime too. So that's so again, from a Buddhist perspective, we talk about the teacher, the importance of the teacher. So the teacher here, the resident teacher, Geshe Doga and Lama Zopa and the Dalai Lama, so we're always saying prayers that, stick around, please, don't pass away early, and also may we continue to be guided by you. So that's, if you like, we're trying to keep that connection going. We've met them, we've listened to them, we know they're telling us something very worthwhile, so we want that to continue. So we're hoping to keep the bond strong between them and us. So if we have an equal feeling towards others, and it's a positive feeling, then we can say that if it's not disdain or indifference, and it's this positive feeling towards every being we approach or encounter or interact with, we could say that every interaction we have from our point of view is positive. If we could hold that mind, no matter what happened, we'd say, oh, it's fine. So I've got a friend of mine, and I've used this example before, and he says, whenever he sees someone that he's walking by, may that person be happy and not have suffering. So that's his thought process. Even if it's someone he doesn't know, so he sort of does that, and then he has that thought, same thing, sort of next person. So he's cultivated his thought process so that he sees someone brand new, for example, he thinks those thoughts. He sees his friend, same thing. So to me, that's a really good example of how you would apply that mind of everyone's my friend, because I'm approaching everyone in the same manner, but in a more open manner. I'm not defensive or overly attached or indifferent. To use that example, it's actually a good term. Indifferent to you. We're trying not to be indifferent. So, and if we can overcome that, then we'll have a much more impactful life on others. So if you had equanimity for 3 people, can you have it for more? How many more? Limitless, you think? Would everyone agree with that? Could be we could perceive limitless and then have that same warm feeling for well, everyone, isn't it? You're talking about limitless, huh? Would you think that would be easy to do? We could do it at a snap of the fingers? So no, we start with 3 and then we expand out and then we try and do it in day to day. And then through meditation you can do it in, well, I'm going to develop an equal feeling for the people in the room, for my family, for my friends, for my state, for my country, for my world, for all the animals, you can do it that way in meditation and then it becomes a little bit more natural. So I find limitless is hard to understand actually. Because I just go, well, I can't perceive that being, those billions of beings that are that way. So how can I actually capture them in this sort of feeling of love and compassion or equanimity? But you can start with small and develop out. So that brings us to another point. If we can develop that quality limitlessly, can we overcome, say, jealousy? That delusion. Can we remove it? Or anger. Can we remove it from our being? Is it within the realms of possibility? So there's a few nods. Okay, so that's removal control. Well, I'd say with meditation we can definitely control, say, jealousy. We can transform it through rejoicing and seeing the pitfalls of it. So we're sort of developing some mental control then, aren't we? We still might have the feeling of jealousy arising, but we're able to subdue it and then transform it. So I think we could subdue it temporarily. Jealousy. Could we subdue it permanently? No? Don't think so? Yep. These are questions for you to answer, not me, because these are things that you should be thinking about. But we're just coming back to the analogy I've used. So our true nature is this Buddha nature, which is like the sky, and those afflicted emotions like jealousy and anger and so on are like clouds. So we would say that the clouds are not of the same nature as the sky, that these clouds can be removed. And then all you're left with is this pure Buddha nature. So that's a Buddhist concept, that the fundamental nature of the mind is pure. So it's pure and clear, so that you can remove it forever. So unfortunately though, it's not like I'll just do a few meditations and it's done. So it takes cultivation, work. So it's what you were saying, you need to suppress or first and then develop, and you find your mind is opening up, it becomes more less enamoured with the afflicted emotion, with that jealousy for example. And then as you practice the antidote to it, which in this case was rejoicing in others, particularly the object of our jealousy, if we rejoice in their success, their good looks, their wealth, whatever it is, then that over time becomes a more natural response, so that affliction becomes less and less strong. And so in Buddhist terms we'd say eventually, ultimately, you will remove that afflicted emotion forever. So it'll never come back. So that's not an easy concept to understand, because if you can remove one afflicted emotion, can you remove two, or three, or 84,000? I think there's 84,000, aren't there? So if you can do one, you could keep going and remove all the afflicted emotions, because they're not at one with our pure nature. So I think so there's the technique of the breathing meditation. So even before that, the technique of breathing in light and energy and breathing out all your worries and afflictions. So that, over time, doing that has an impact, that it becomes more and more real and more impactful. And then the breathing meditation, it should, over time, if you practice, it should reduce those discursive thoughts, which are the thought chasing the next thought with the next one. Because you're just focusing on the in and out, the sensation as it goes in and out. That should reduce that, and you'll find over time your mind becomes peaceful and subdued doing that. And Geshe Doga talks about some of his students being able to meditate for, they can keep going, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, but he's not talking about them watching the clock and just going, 5 minutes. They're actually, their mind is calm and clear while they're doing it, and they're not distracted. So they feel like they've subdued those afflicted emotions even when they're doing that meditation, the breathing. And then applying we can use this example, the analytical meditation with the friend and the enemy and the stranger. If you can see that it's so fluid, those labels, and you become less enamoured with them, then out of the meditation you'll find that your first response towards meeting someone really fantastic and pleasant isn't to label them strongly and as a friend and overestimate their good qualities and then become very attached to them. It just might be an affection, a friendship, etc. But we're not overestimating, and we're not similarly with the person we have perhaps a not so pleasant encounter with. We stop labelling them so strongly at first as the enemy, and the stranger. Well, if we're practicing, we might befriend that stranger out of warmth for them. That will develop as well. Okay, so that covers. I think that covers pretty much what we've spoken about for several weeks, really. So if we've created any positive energy out of the activity tonight, then it's very good to dedicate. So that's the other. It's a bookend, so good motivation and dedication. And similarly through the day, we set a good motivation in the morning, then whatever activity we perform, it'll give us impetus for whatever activities we do, whether it's work or play or whatever, eating, sleeping, whatever, it's good. And then at the end, to dedicate that merit is very good too. So we can, what could we dedicate towards? I've asked this question before, but maybe someone who hasn't answered could answer that. What could we dedicate towards? If we've created any positive energy, what could we dedicate it towards? Yes, we could dedicate all that positive energy we've created towards who we perceive to be an enemy. And even that thought is breaking down that idea of the enemy being evil or, terrible, because you wouldn't do that necessarily with someone who you really thought like that. So actually doing that is really good, because you're developing a warmth or a positive feeling towards them as opposed to an indifference or a disdain. So that's very good. Who else could we dedicate towards? What about ourselves? Could we dedicate towards our own happiness? Is that worthwhile? Yep. Yeah, that's worthwhile too. And then could we dedicate to the people in the room? And could we extend it out further? And could we keep going? Yeah, so that's again one of the characteristics of this Tibetan tradition, is that I'm dedicating towards for all sentient beings' benefit, even if I can't perceive all sentient beings. And that's one of the things I have trouble with. I can't perceive them, so I'll send it out, but I can't perceive all of them, but I'll still try. Because it does widen your scope. Because you're going, all right, these people, I can see you, yeah, I can do that. I can sort of visualise Melbourne, or when you start going out, it becomes much more nebulous, because you're going, well, what are they? Where are these people? Where are these beings? Anyway, still we do it. So that's quite important as well. And one of the things that this is again for your own investigation is one of the techniques for developing this sort of what they call the mind of enlightenment is to convince yourself through techniques that all beings have been your mother. At some point, all beings have been your mother in the past lives. So you don't believe that. So you have to, anyway, that's one technique. To develop this sort of mind of enlightenment towards all beings, you study the techniques and go, all beings have been my mother, and therefore I'm going to develop that affection and desire for their happiness. But is it true that all beings have been our mother? Possible? It sounds like a metaphor, but if you talk about endless lives, yeah, it's possible. But personally, I go, oh, okay. I know, like that lady sort of said, she's met someone and she's had a connection with them. It's infinity, yeah, possible. But that points to, in the past, there's been some connection with them, with that person or those people, and that's come to fruition in this life. So I can sort of see that. But when you talk about someone I can't perceive, or they could even be in the same room, but I have no connection with them. So it's sort of like, oh, could they have been my mother? And vice versa. If they were my mother, I was their mother. So, anyway, there's one technique to develop this mind of enlightenment, which I won't cover tonight because it's quite a huge topic. But that's one technique. Infinite, yeah. So infinite lifetime. That's right. So philosophically, if you go, there are infinite lifetimes backwards we've had. So it's not, it's just 1,000 or 10. It's not. It's infinite, and there are infinite beings in existence. Then it's possible that all of them have been our mother at some stage, and vice versa, you'd have to say. Possible, yeah. But anyway, so they're all, if you like, outcomes of studying the law of cause and effect and rebirth. If you're trying to develop an understanding about what things will make you happy now in the future and so on, that they're helpful, because you go, oh, is it possible? Can I look that far? Can I sort of perceive that being could have been connected to me in that way? It's anyway quite tricky. Much easier though to think about it in terms of who we interact with now, or have, and go, yep, I can see I've got a strong relationship with all these people, and they're my family, my friends, etc., and so on. So I can develop that mind of enlightenment for their benefit. Yep. Yes. Yep. Yep, that's right. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So we start off with love and compassion for ourselves. We expand it out to others, and if we're all interconnected, then it does mean we can develop it for others too. Yep. Yeah. So anyway, it's sort of a, if you like, a mind-blowing end to the 5 weeks of Monday nights, but that's something good to leave with, because you go, oh, okay, well, yeah, we had a good sort of few weeks in the meditation hall, and we learnt something, and then we can perhaps carry that forward, take it with us, and then chew it over. So that's the other thing. You never leave your critical faculties outside the door or when you come in here. You always have to be, does this make sense? Is this true? Even if it's not, you can just set it aside. So that's very important, because it's not a cult here, so we're not trying to convince anyone. It's just here we're presenting it, and you examine it. So that's quite important too. So all right, so let's finish off. We'll dedicate, so we can close our eyes, get into the meditation sort of posture, and we'll dedicate ourselves for whatever level, whatever level we think is appropriate. So we dedicate all the merits we've accumulated from this activity in the meditation hall. Okay, well, thank you very much, and all the best.